Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm 32 years old, a mother of 2 boys, and a high school teacher living in a quiet suburb outside of the city. Growing up, I had always been surrounded by love and understanding. My parents, though strict, always taught me the value of empathy and communication. Life seemed simple until I got married and started my own family. Little did I know that understanding men, be it my husband, my father, or even my 2 little boys, would become one of the biggest mysteries of my life. It was during one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, while I was sorting laundry, that my perspective on men took a turn I never expected. As I folded a pile of clothes, I noticed something odd, a handwritten note tucked into my husband's shirt pocket. It was short but cryptic. I wish I could say this to her face, but I'm afraid of what might happen. My heart raced. Was this about me? Was it about someone else? A flood of questions hit me all at once. My husband, Daniel, had always been a reserved man. He wasn't one to openly share his thoughts or emotions, and I had come to accept that. But this note, this was different. I decided to confront him that evening. However, when he walked through the door, exhausted from work, something stopped me. Maybe it was fear, or maybe it was hope that this would all make sense on its own. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about the note. It consumed me, affecting everything I did. At school, I found myself snapping at my students for small mistakes. At home, I was distracted during dinner and even forgot to pack my kids' lunches one morning, a first for me. Daniel, on the other hand, seemed oblivious to my internal turmoil. He carried on as usual, his usual calm and composed self. But that only made things worse. I began to wonder, how could he act so normal when something so significant was clearly weighing on his mind? One evening, I overheard Daniel talking on the phone in hushed tones. He was in the garage, and while I couldn't make out every word, I caught enough to know he was talking to someone about her. My chest tightened. Who was she? And why couldn't he talk to me about this? Unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, I decided to dig deeper. The next day, while Daniel was at work, I searched through his things, something I had never done before in our 10 years of marriage. What I found shocked me. Hidden in his desk drawer was a small, old photograph of a young girl. On the back of the photo, in Daniel's handwriting, were the words, "You deserved better." I stared at the photo, my mind racing. Who was this girl? And why did my husband feel such a deep sense of guilt or regret towards her? I wanted answers, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that confronting Daniel might only push him further away. That night, I broke down. Sitting alone in the kitchen, I let the tears flow freely. For the first time, I felt completely helpless in my marriage. I couldn't understand Daniel, and worse, I felt like I didn't even know him anymore. When Daniel walked in and saw me crying, he froze. For a moment, I thought he might open up, but instead, he simply placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "Sarah, I'm here." No explanations, no questions, just that one sentence. And somehow, it made me feel even more distant from him. Over the next week, the tension in our house grew unbearable. My eldest son, Ethan, who is only 8, asked me, "Mom, why are you and Dad so quiet all the time?" My heart sank. I realized that whatever was going on between Daniel and me was starting to affect our children too. Even my younger son, Liam, who is usually too busy playing with his Legos to notice much, began clinging to me more than usual. It was as if he could sense the unease in our home. I couldn't let this go on any longer. I needed to know the truth, not just for my sake, but for the sake of my family. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. One evening, while helping Ethan with his homework, he casually mentioned, "Dad told me about Aunt Emma today. He said she used to take him to the park when he was little." Aunt Emma. I had never heard of her before. My curiosity piqued. I decided to ask Daniel about her that night. To my surprise, he didn't shy away this time. Instead, he looked me in the eyes and said, "It's time I tell you everything." Daniel told me about his older sister, Emma, who had passed away when he was just 10 years old. She had been his protector, his confidant, and his best friend. The note I found, the photograph, and even his distant behavior all made sense now. He had been carrying the weight of her loss and the guilt of not being able to save her for decades. But even after sharing his story, Daniel admitted that he still struggled to process his emotions. "I don't know how to talk about these things, Sarah," he said. "It's just not how I was raised." His words hit me hard. I realized that while women are often encouraged to express their feelings, men are taught to bottle them up. This wasn't just about Daniel, it was about how society shapes men to deal with their emotions differently. As Daniel and I sat together, I knew our journey was far from over. There were still so many things left unsaid, so many wounds that needed healing. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Thank you for listening to my story. Have you ever felt like there was a wall between you and someone you love? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who might find it relatable. Let's keep the conversation going.